Hello everyone and welcome back to the Testo video guide series. In this guide I'll show you how to turn on and off a virtual machine with Testo-lang. So let's get right to it. In the last guide we've learned two ways to create a virtual machine. Create an empty, blank machine and create a machine based on an existing one. In this guide, just like in the previous one, we'll practice with a machine created on the base of the manually prepared handmade machine with Windows 7 operating system on board. Let me remind you that to actually create a machine, a simple declaration is not enough. You need to reference the machine in one of the tests. That's why we have just such a test in the script. Let's run the test and make sure that the machine was actually created. A virtual machine is always created in the turned off state. To turn it on, the action start is needed. Right now our test has only one command. A print action is applied to the imported VM virtual machine. A start is also an action, just like a print, so we can add it right in the end of the action block. After the start, we're going to add one more action, sleep. This action just waits unconditionally for the specified amount of time. A bit later we'll see why this action is needed. Sleep actions take an argument, a time interval to wait. In Testo-lang, a time interval is specified with a special literal. Let's go with 10 seconds of waiting. When running the test, we'll have a warning informing us about the test losing its cache. For now, we may pay no attention to it and just agree. Caching will be considered in future video guides. After we have agreed with the warning, the test launches, and we can see that the virtual machine is booting up. But then, in 10 seconds, the test passes, and the machine turns off again. This happens because at the end of each test, Testo framework evaluates whether the machine is needed in the following tests or not. If the machine is no longer needed, Testo turns it off to save some resources. If we hadn't used the sleep action, the machine would have started and then immediately turns off again. We wouldn't have even noticed anything. In the next guide, we're going to learn how to check what's going on with the machine at any moment of any test, but for now, we'll get by with sleep actions. The last thing worth mentioning about start actions is that they can be applied only to a turned-off machine. Trying to start an already powered-on machine will lead to an error. We've covered the start routine, so let's move on to the turning off objective. There are two ways to power down a machine, a forced way and a gracious way. The forced way is done with a stop action and mimics a power failure. This action can be applied only to a turned-on machine. Let's add a stop action at the end of the test, followed by another sleep for 5 seconds. Like we expected, the machine had turned off. This time not at the end of the test, but as a result of the stop action. It is clearly visible that the test was going on even after the machine had turned off. There is also a gracious way to turn off a machine, with a shutdown action. This action sends a SIG-term signal to the machine. If the operating system inside the machine can handle this signal, then a gracious shutdown process will start. Let's check out this action. Change the test so it waits enough time for the Windows to boot up inside the machine. 1 minute should be more than enough. After that, we invoke a shutdown action. We can see that this time the machine was turned off gracefully. The shutdown action doesn't return the control until the machine is powered off completely. To prevent a case when a virtual machine fails to turn off an acceptable time, or even shut down at all, shutdown actions have the timeout specifier, 1 minute by default. If the shutting down process takes more than the timeout, an error is generated. Let's see how it works. This time the test failed, because the timeout was triggered when implementing the shutdown action, since the machine had failed to turn off in time. Finally, a couple of words about the reset. There is no designated action for a reset in Testo-lang, but you can build up a reset with a combination of shutdown plus start or stop plus start actions. So that is all that you need to know about machine power control in Testo-lang. Thanks for your time, and I'll see you in the next guide.